Hey there folks, in this video we're going to be exploring how damage systems work inside of Unreal and a couple of the common nodes that exist, such as apply damage and any damage, that we can be using for passing messages back and forth between different actors, and of course building a basic damage system. So to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves a new blueprint actor. This is going to be the thing that is going to cause damage to our player. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new blueprint class, and it's going to be of the type actor, because this will be something that I can place or spawn into my world. Most often probably going to be placed, but we could use this if we wanted to spawn it off of other effects, create a damage causing volume or damage causing area. Okay, so I've got an actor. I'm going to call it BP_damage causer. And the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go to my viewport and my components, and I'm going to start thinking about adding some kind of visual elements to this one. Now I'm going to go with probably some kind of static mesh as a visual element. Now I could go with the basic cube, and obviously this will just be this cube here, but it might be worth just having a look at what other options I've got for other visual elements, other kind of interesting bits that I've got. I've got a whole bunch of these different ones that exist inside of the Synty packs, so I might pick one of those. I can put one of this primitive cube here on, and I could go and mess around with those different materials and see what kind of stuff we have in here as well. So let's put one of these polygon prototype ones on. We'll go with it with the we won't go green, because green suggests maybe it's going to cause me to be healed, so we'll go with a red cube for now. And the next thing I'm going to need is some kind of collision. So this could be a box collision, capsule collision, or a sphere collision. Really it's just the shapes that are going to be changing here. So we'll go for a box collision. It can be childed to the cube, or we can drag it onto the default scene route and attach it. It doesn't really matter whether it exists inside of and attached to it or not. The key thing here is that this box, this collision box, you can see we can't see it. And that's because that box is actually smaller than the static mesh itself. So you see here, if I actually extend that out until it becomes 50, 50, 50, 50 is going to make that match up perfectly with what we've got here. Now, something we need to think about here, and I'm just going to take this damage causer and I'm just going to go grab it and put it into my world. And I'm just going to bump my snapping up a little bit there, just so it's not so low. There we go. And I'm just going to press play. Now, if I walk over, you can see I can't walk into this, and I want this to be a damage causing volume. I want to go over to this and take damage every single time I go in there. And the reason that that's happening is because this element here right now is actually being blocked because of the static mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the static mesh itself being the visual element, and the box being the collision and handling all the collision for me. And I want to be able to walk through the static mesh. So here I'm going to go to the cube. I'm going to scroll down until I find the collision section here. And rather than block all dynamic, I'm going to change this to have no collision. We can change it to maybe overlap all, or just no collision. Depends what you want it to do, whether you still want it to be registering that you've got in. But we do have a collision box on there anyway. So that's going to be able to handle every time we walk in and walk out. Okay, so we've got something visual in the world. We can walk in and walk out of it. Let's start actually tracking when we go in and when we come out. Now, if you've seen before, we've got these collision boxes. If you right click on a collision box, you can go to add event, and you can see there's a whole bunch of different events that exist, such as hit for when two different collision elements hit each other. We've got begin overlap, so when an actor starts overlapping the extent of it, and end overlap. You can also click on the collision box and scroll all the way down to the bottom over here, and you can create the events from this one. And I'm just going to go with a begin overlap event, and I'm going to go with an end overlap event. And the reason for that is I want to know when does my player walk in and when does my player leave. For now, what we'll do is we'll just have it every time I walk in, I'll take damage. So it can be a one-off kind of trigger. We land on these spikes, they cause damage to us. But we'll extend this in future videos so it actually does like a over time effect, and we'll keep on repeating and doing damage to the player until they leave the area of the volume. Okay, so understanding these overlaps. The first executable here is going to be obviously the moment this happens, the moment something begins overlapping this box. The other thing that's really important here is this other actor. This is going to tell us what other thing has overlapped us. So here, if I was to take this print string and I was to take this other actor, what it's going to do is it's going to register that this actor, what I want to do to convert it into a string, I want to get the display name. Let's just have a look at what happens when I walk into this box here and I get display name. You see there, it gives me the name of the actor that has gone in, which is my base character. Okay, so a couple of things we could do here. We could cast and just have a cast to base character. And this would be one way of saying, is this other actor, because this is a generic actor type, is this other actor of the type BP base character? And that's one way that you'll see a lot where people filter out a type of actor to a specific type. We can also make this a little bit more generic so that rather than every single thing happening and checking whether it's base character, what about if we've got lots of different types of characters? What about if we've got enemies that maybe didn't inherit from base character? Maybe we've got vehicles, pawns, and things like that. Well, that's where we can start thinking about kind of things like actor tags. So here what I've done is I've opened up my base character, and inside of my base character, you can see in there, I'm going to select this BP base character root over here. And then in the details panel, I'm going to search for tag. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I can add tags to individual elements, but I want to add a tag to the actor themselves. I'm going to add a tag, and this one is just going to be player. Now, that means that my player and anything that inherits from this is going to be tagged as being player. And now, back in my damage causer, I can say actor has tag. And this is a true or false. I can use a branch for that. So you right click and type in branch, or you can use the hotkey B and click. You're going to use branches a lot, so B and click's a good one to learn. And I'm going to check, do they have this specific tag? So player, but this is where you could obviously promote this to a variable. You could right click it, promote it to a variable, and you could say, what type of thing am I looking for? Am I looking for enemies? Am I looking for players? I can have tags that I set up for that specific purpose. Okay, let's just print string again and just say, you know, is this correct? Maybe we'll print out the name again and just see whether it's still working. There you go, you can see it's still working there. And without having to cast now, I've got this checking, does this other actor, the one that's walked in, do they have this actor tag on them? If they do, then what should we do? Well, what we're going to do is we are going to apply some damage to them. Now, all actors have these two nodes that we're going to need to use a lot. We've got apply damage, and there are different versions of apply damage that we might look at in the future, but for now, apply damage is fine. And we also have an any damage, and that's an event. So you can see these things are linked to each other. We're going to apply damage to something else, and it's going to have its any damage being triggered by that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, when I overlap, I'm going to check whether it's the player that I'm overlapping, and then if it is, I'm going to apply damage to them. Now, this is only going to work if you feed it two pieces of information. The first one is it needs to know about the damaged actor. Well, the damaged actor, the one that's going to get damaged and have damage applied to it, is the other actor. It's the one that has walked into this collision box. So I'm going to take this over here and make it nice and tidy. And then the other thing I need to make sure I always have is a base damage, because it's not going to work if I leave this at 0. I'm just going to put in some kind of arbitrary number for now. Maybe we go with like 25, and that's fine. But what I might want to do is just promote this to a variable. If you type in the number first and then right click and promote to variable, it's a very useful method, because obviously now I've got a variable called base damage. So by right clicking and promoting to variable, I've created a variable of the correct type with the matching name, and any value that was already assigned to it has also already been pre-assigned, which is very useful because now that variable is a float and equals 25. And the next thing I'm also going to do is I'm just going to go over to here where it says float, and there's this little closed eye symbol down the bottom left. I'm going to click on that. Yeah, you can also, in this top right over here, go to instance editable, and you can make that true. And you can see the eye opens up there. And that allows us to edit this on every single instance of these that have been placed into the world. So just to show you that now, you can see I've got this damage causer box and the base damage variable over here. has been made editable. If I duplicate out one, so I've held Alt and dragged one out, I could actually change this and say this one is going to cause 50, while this one's going to cause 25. So we have a lot of control over each instance of those. Now, I don't recommend having a box that does 50 and a box that does 25 unless you're going to differentiate them visually, because otherwise the player's going to learn that boxes do 25 damage and then be a little bit annoyed when other ones do 50. They're not going to learn the rules of your game. But it makes it easier for us to change individual ones or reuse these to make more modular systems. Now, in the future, we'll look at what Event Instigator, Event Damage Causer do. They're going to be very useful for having lots of different characters, having teams, thinking about what has actually caused the damage to us. But these two are the main things you must have plugged in. The actor that you want to damage and the amount of damage that you want to pass to them. Okay, and just to make sure that this is working now, we can obviously walk in here. This is going to apply damage to my character, but I've not got anything to actually say, hey, I've took some damage. So I have no idea if this is actually being registered by my character. So let's just, in my base character, add some kind of functionality just to let us know that that is working. Now, we've just seen that apply damage is the 1/2. Now we can have a look at the any damage. And this event damage here, you can see, if I just print string, and let's just write in here something like ouch. Let's see whether that gets triggered. So when I walk in, ouch. So every time I walk in, it says ouch, and it's applying damage to my character. Now, when I say it's applying damage to my character, it is passing a value. It's telling this event to run. It's passing a value through here. So if I actually use this damage here and just print this out instead, what you'll see is it's passing that number through. So it's going to say 25, 25, 25. But obviously we haven't told it to actually be damage. We haven't told it that this value, even though it says damage here, we haven't told it that it's actually damage and it should be subtracted from health and potentially kill our character. So we've got some stuff to extend on here to actually make this work. But in the next videos, what we'll have a look at is fleshing this out into a full system. But as a starting point, we now have two actors that are talking to each other. And this damage causing box here is passing a message through to something when it overlaps to apply or just send it a message saying this is a number that is important to you. And in this context, we're using it to apply damage. Now, we don't have to always use it for apply damage. Just the fact that we're applying damage and sending a message to something, we can even use this for blueprint communication. If you want to walk up, you can essentially punch or hit a trigger to make it work. You can enable and disable things just by passing them a message through apply damage. But in our future videos, we'll turn this into a full health system. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.